edition of the Sewing Guru. Now, in the previous videos we've constructed our front panels fully, and we've now constructed our back panels fully, and we are ready now to attach both these panels together. So in this video I'm going to show you how to do that by first of all attaching them on the inside leg seam. So what we're going to do is we're going to be attaching those panels by using a flat felt seam. So you're going to be using all your top stitching for this, where we're going to be attaching them together using the inside leg seam. Okay, so the first thing what we need to do is we need to establish which way our flat felt seam is going to be lying, and which direction it's going to be facing. Okay, so for instance, this flat felt seam is lying this way. Okay, it's lying from the right hand panel and it's lying facing over the top of the left hand panel. So every jeans in the industry, or every pair that I know of, the seam of the flat felt seam lies backwards. Okay, so this is our front panel. If we were wearing these jeans, okay, our seams would be lying this way, so they'd be facing backwards. Okay, so you need to just turn this seam like so, turn it and put a pin there. Okay, so you know that this flat felt seam is going to be facing backwards. Okay, so for instance, when you're wearing these jeans, this seam will face this way on. It's going to face back towards the back leg. Okay, so this seam is going to be lying on top of your back seam. Okay, so what you need to do is just turn this over. Now this pin was just a pin to remember where you are. Okay, so we've turned this over now, and you can see we've put our pin here, so we know that our first seam is going to be facing this way on. Okay, and you can see the inside of the pocket. So what you need to do is you need to get the back panel of the leg, which is going to be positioned and sewn onto this leg. Okay, so we've got our back panel and we're looking at this the correct way on. Okay, so we have here our crutch point. Okay, so you need to position that so it's completely aligned with that crutch point, and we now know that this here is the seam which is facing this way on, so we can just position our jeans like so. Make sure that this crutch point as well is facing the right way, you know, so it's all aligned, and just straighten your jeans completely all the way to the bottom. Okay, so we've got the bottom of the hem here, and make sure that all of this is totally aligned. Okay, making sure that of course it is aligned with the crutch point. So starting from the crutch point, what you need to do is just fold that seam back onto the back panel. Okay, so just fold that over like so. Yeah, it's a little tricky, but the starting point, once you've got your starting point, you're fine. So okay, so make sure that this crutch seam is aligned as well, and fold that fold this seam onto there, and just okay, so just when you've got that, it will take a little bit of time, but when you've got that, just press it in place. Okay, and just put a pin in there to hold that down. Okay, so we've got our crutch point. Make sure that all of this is straight. Just nice and straight, and press that as well. like so. Okay, you know, this is going to be the fiddly bit, aligning this crutch part. Alright, so that's not quite aligned, so we're just going to go back and move that further over. So just bring that further over so it's a lot more aligned. That's better. Okay, just, you know, this is very important that this point here is aligned at this point. Alright, so just press that so that it's all nicely aligned in place. Because once you've got this part, you're going to be fine by pressing the seam over and carrying on to the actual hem itself. Okay, so just put another pin here. That's better, we're getting it now because that's now aligned. Okay, I mean, in the industry, the machine, it would do this all in one go, so you know, it's a lot easier. So, but we've got to do it this way. Okay, so just keep going right along. Make sure that this is straight, and just keep pressing this seam over right along. Okay, this is actually one continuous line. Okay, one continuous seam, so it's quite a long seam, is this. Keep going right along. Okay, make sure that your seam is 1 centimetre in alignment. Keep going along until eventually, I'll just take these pins out of the way, eventually you will get to the bottom hem. Okay, so just keep pressing that. So it's one continuous line. Okay, like so. All the way along until you reach the bottom hem. Okay, now if you've got it where one's basically two is longer than the other, it doesn't matter, because you've obviously put your seam allowances on to make your jeans a little bit longer than what they are. So when you do shorten them to the correct length, they are going to be fine. So don't really worry about that. If you haven't done that, you can actually just stretch the denim in place, if you like, by just literally putting the denim like so, yeah, and aligning this like so, so it's aligned, and just taking these pins out and just stretching the denim in place like that. Okay, but that's only if you haven't put your enough seam allowance on the bottom and it's going to be not quite right. So you can actually just manipulate this seam so it stretches in place, okay, as I've done there. That will now just stretch in place, and of course it becomes the correct length at this point here. So we need to do that all the way along for the other leg as well. Okay, so again, I'm just going to position this so it's all correct, and just fold this seam over here. Just fold it over right along. See, once you've aligned it, the second leg is a lot quicker, okay? As you can see. So we just put some pins in here. Put a pin down here at this side. One here. And another one here. Okay, and eventually you will meet the point at the crutch point where you first started. Just press that in place. Like so. For another couple of pins just to hold that in place. I mean, once you've pinned it and it's all aligned, you can just do one continuous row of stitching with the sewing machine and it'll be very quick. It'll just be in place very, very quickly. Okay, so when you've done that, as you're like me, you've got all of your seam now in place, okay? Making sure that it's completely aligned at this crutch point here, okay? Right along. Okay, we'll put another, just press this down in place. And put another pin in there so that it's all nice and secure for when we stitch it. Okay, making sure that all of that is completely in place. Okay, and when you've done that, what we're doing is we're stitching where the raw edge is. So again, we're stitching a centimetre in, just catching the raw edge in place, and we're stitching this seam down. Okay, so we're going through all of these layers and we're stitching from here right along over the crutch part, right along to the other side at this point here. And remember, do that in your top stitching. So what I've done is I've top stitched right along and brought that seam in. Okay, so that's now secure. So we've got our first row of top stitching all the way along the complete inside seam over the crutch right along to the other leg. Okay, and what I've done as well is this is all now aligned, and I've sort of stretched the denim so that the seam is all nicely in place. Okay, so that these hem points here at the bottoms are completely aligned. Okay, so the next bit, when you're happy with that, we can open up our legs, okay, of the jeans, and just press the seams down here. Okay, like so. And what we can do is just put a few pins in here to secure this down. Okay. Now if you've got excess threads, okay, make sure that they're all cut off because you don't want them sticking out. Just cut your excess threads out and make sure that they're all inside, like so. Press again. Another pin there and one here. These are just basically to hold your seam down, just to secure that in place, ready for when you do the next amount of top stitching. So again, these inside leg panels are open completely lying flat. Press this seam down. Okay, like so. Now the jeans are really now starting to take shape, and they should be starting to look really good. And another pin here. Okay, and make sure that the crutch point is completely lying flat, like so, because this point here we need to get the top stitching over the top so it's completely in alignment again. Okay, so just press that down so it's all nice and flat. A few more pins, like so. And just keep pressing right along. Okay, if you've got any excess threads again inside, just trim those off. on the raw seams so that all of these raw seams are caught in. Again, press this down in place right along. Put another pin there. Okay, and again it's got some more seams here and raw edges. Snip all of these out of the way. Okay, and press the rest of this seam down flat. And of course, because denim is 100% cotton, you know, and it stretches slightly, when you press it in place there won't be any distortion or anything. That's the beauty about denim. It's very hard wearing, and it also goes, the fabric will go where you want it to go. Okay, as you can see there, I mean, I've stretched the fabric in place to reach so that that is near enough in alignment, yeah, and you can't see any kind of waviness or anything. It's just really nice and flat. So we've got a lovely flat seam there. So again, a couple of pins along this seam just to keep this now in alignment. Okay, and when you've done that, what you need to do is just top stitch across the edge to finish off this double row of stitching and to flatten your seam down. From here, right along, one continuous line over the crutch. Now, when you get to the crutch point, you can do a few extra tacks just to really strengthen that if you like. Keep going all the way along until you reach the other side hem on the other leg. Okay, so as you can see, we've created this double row of top stitching right along. Okay, so I'm starting from the crutch point here, and I've done that right along for the inside leg seam, as you can see. Okay, carries on all the way to the bottom hem at this point, and again all the way to the bottom hem at that point. Okay, so that's it. Basically, that is the inside leg seam. Now, if I put these jeans the way that they are going to be when you're wearing them, I can now show you what I meant by the seam lying backwards. Okay, so you can see here, there's our flat felled seam in our jeans, and we've got here, this is the front panels of our jeans here. Okay, so this flat felled seam is now facing this way towards the back, as you can see. Okay, so that's what I meant by that. It's very rare that you see the seam facing forwards, unless of course it's a design feature. But now that we've done that, we're now ready to go on to the next episode or next video, where we're going to be attaching the side seams together, where we can actually put our jeans on for the first time to try them on to see if they fit.